So anyways, I feel that there's no proper professional kakash tutorial or videos on YouTube, so I'm gonna give it a shot. So pretty much you want to start with flouring your table. You kind of want to throw it like a weed, you're throwing a weed killer. That's pretty much the method that you want to dust your table with. And that'll prevent your dough from sticking. Obviously you don't want to go trigger happy because you don't want your dough to become really dry. And now I'm gonna start rolling. You want to work all the, it's not so important if it's rectangular or oval. The main thing is that it's paper thin. And I'm trying to roll it out as thin as possible. I didn't bother showing the actual making of the dough because that's typical. Most doughs, it's pretty much the same technique and formula. You could go on YouTube or whatever and you could get a proper dough making techniques and recipes. You want to work all the corners. You want it to be as even as possible. I mean, you could fix it later if it's not perfectly even, so don't break a sweat, but you're trying to get a pretty symmetrical-ish kind of situation going on. And even without using machinery, you can get pretty mechanical like quality. Kakash cake, you want those paper thin layers that, you want it to look as if it was made, I'm out of breath, You want to look as if it was made by a machine. Paper thin layers oozing with that chocolate, pretty much. If you look closely, you could almost see the black of this table through the dough. It's almost see-through. The ends are a little thicker, so I gotta work the ends a little bit more. But I'm trying to make it as big as possible. That looks about right. What is it? 1, 2, 2.5, 3 feet by like 1.5 feet, give or take. So the dough's ready. Now I'm ready to start with the chocolate. Awesome, awesome chocolate. So anyways, I'm using liquid marble. This is used to marbleize, let's say cheesecake, kakash cake, ragalach, etc., etc., etc. And often, if you see it's separated on top of the oil from the chocolate, so you want to mix it very thoroughly, and all the oil is incorporated. Very, very important. So anyways, I'm gonna put about a ladle and a half of liquid marble or chocolate marble on this dough, about a ladle and here's a half. And I usually like using a classic hamburger flipper, but I don't have one readily available, so I'm just gonna use this spatula. And I'm gonna shear it all the way to the end. I'm a firm, avid believer of chocolating it all the way to the end. I don't believe in leaving any empty spots because that leaves you those bready, dry, mealy, cakey, no good ends, which are not fun. So I'm not concerned about leaking. I'm really not concerned about leaking. I'd rather it leak a little bit than having dry ends. And by the way, if you do the right amount, it shouldn't really leak. That is the truth. I actually want a tad bit more. I don't know if this is, I wanted to use an 8-ounce ladle. This is probably a 6-ounce, so I'm gonna add, I don't want to be cheap on the cocoa. Meaning the dough is a vehicle to eat chocolate, not the opposite way around. Now for the next part, see I always lean my spatula on the bowl. For the next part, I make a ratio of cocoa and sugar. I only use Holland cocoa, the expensive, fancy, delicious cocoa. I do 3 cups of sugar to 1 cup of Holland Dutch processed cocoa powder. And I use approximately a cup or to a cup and a half of this, and I sprinkle it evenly, not too thin, not too thick, all over. This creates a perfect balance in the sense that it's not too oozy, but it's not too thick. So you want to get the right amount. Start doing it around, and then you can cover the middle. This prevents it from being too oozy, but also the Holland cocoa adds a nice bitterness, so it's not sickeningly sweet. I'm going to disappear from the camera for a minute so I could go wash my hands, because when I roll this, I don't want the outside to get all dark. I just forgot to mention one thing. It's not a paid sponsorship. I don't really care to promote or demote anything. I'm just telling you that this product is the stuff. This is like the Heinz ketchup of chocolate spread for kakash and cheesecake. So we're rolling this, and as we're pulling inward and outward to even it out, trying to balance everything out. And like this and like that and like that and like that. We're making a beautiful loaf. This is going to be on the bottom. The seam is going to be on the bottom. And see? Beautiful, just like that. And you could, voila. So at any rate, this is the size of a commercial loaf, and I hear baking in the background. What a coincidence. And so I'm gonna cut this down to shape because I'm putting it on a household cookie tray. You can zoom in onto that cookie tray. We have one already made. I'm gonna cut this down to shape so it, see all those exposed layers. Usually I would leave it like this, but because I have to downsize it to a household tray, I'm gonna do just that. Same thing on this. Now that we have some extra pastry dough, if you wanted to make rugelach, you pretty much cut triangles, right? And you cut triangles, and you would roll it up into rugelach. Maybe it doesn't look the prettiest, this one, but that's the general idea of rugelach. There's no point in trying to make it yourself. It's not going to be as good. Now I'm going to actually roll, and the technique is very important. You want to hold your fingers like this together, and you want to start on one corner. You want to tuck a teeny little bit, and I'm going to teach you the pull and tuck, pull and fold, pull and fold, pull and fold. You want to start for a little bit, and you want to always pull back, always pulling back, because this is going to create those paper thin layers. And do 1 inch at a time. Don't fold it like this, because then it's just going to look like a loose jelly roll. You want to literally pull every inch, pull, and you want your 2 fingers together, because you don't want to leave lapses, because if you leave lapses, it's just going to be very wide, the layers. Pull and forward, 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 pull and forward. See, this is already starting to overhang, so you want to fold it in and pull out. Fold in and pull out. Pull and forward, pull and forward, pull and forward. It's almost like singing Roll, Roll, Roll Your Boat. See, if you do it like this, it's going to be loose and saggy. If you also noticed, I started from the narrow side. Most people, when they roll kakash, they do it from the long side. But if you notice, I'm constantly pulling. I want to start off narrow so I have extra pull space. If I start from the long side and I pull, it's going to be this big like an anaconda. You don't want that. It's going to be thin and long. This way you can control how long it is. you also give yourself extra pull space. I'm tucking it and pulling out. Tucking, because I don't want to continue rolling this way, because then I'm just going to roll it into itself. I want to roll but pull out. Working every single inch. And the tip is sticking to the table a bit, so that's helping me pull it. It's helping me get pull, because if it would pull off, if it would detach itself, then I wouldn't get that nice pull factor. You see, I'm constantly rolling it. Now, ooh, that wasn't good, but I'm not ashamed, because it's gonna cover itself up. It's gonna cover itself up. That's the beauty of kakash. I'm happy I made that mistake, because now I can show how I'm gonna remedy. Or not. Yeah, all right. That's actually a very pretty looking kakash. And even though we had a little bit of a mishap at the end, I believe I fairly showed the proper technique of how to roll a kakash. The next thing is I have to score it a few times so that when it expands in the oven, it'll have expansive space. It'll have room to expand. Also, I'm gonna egg it and score it now, because once it rises, I don't want to play with it once that happens. It's totally fine to do that now. Another thing is I don't tuck it at the end. That also creates a thick, bready, dry end. First of all, it looks gorgeous, almost like a Danish, the rolls at the end. When it bakes, it prevents dry, thick, unchocolatey end, and it looks really nice. So I'm gonna get a knife and a sheet pan now. You see, this is very flexible. You know, it's not gonna plots on you. I keep the seam down. I do not egg the lip. It's a redundant step. It sticks perfectly. It stays sealed perfectly. Just make sure that the seam is on the bottom. Fit it to the pan. If it's a little bit like crooked, you can straighten it. No biggie. You want to slash it about 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's on a nice little angle. That gives it room to expand when it grows, so the top doesn't crack. And now I shall egg it. Let me get my egg wash. I'm going to thoroughly egg it. It's a beautiful, beautiful loaf. See all those millions and billions and trillions of layers. Makes me really happy and excited. Brings back nostalgia. You want to get underneath the belly. You see? You don't want scrambled eggs on the paper. Do not spray the paper, by the way. It's excess, doesn't need it. But you do want to get underneath the belly, because when the dough expands and grows, if you don't get underneath there, when it expands and grows, you're going to have a dry spot, and it's not going to look too pretty. These ends, not the most important thing to egg. You know, I think I have better stuff to do with my time. Main thing is, you know, the exterior of the actual dough. It's gonna crisp up. These ends, it's gonna crisp up and look really nice and dandy. Liberal, copious, excessive, abundant amounts. Well, not that much. See, now it's ready to rise. Yet one more time. We already had it rise twice. Once when we made the big blob of dough, and another time when we broke it down into shape. And now it's going to rise yet a third time, and probably about 40 minutes to an hour, because it's not so warm in here. If it was warmer, maybe 30 minutes. You know, you want it to expand considerably, and we're going to bake it for about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes. I always bake it on the top rack of the oven in the middle, not on the sides. The sides of the oven burn because that's where the heat source is. So I'm going to keep it centered in the middle. That's the way to mimic or copy a professional oven, because a professional oven rotates or circulates. But we don't have that in a house oven, so we're going to put it in the top middle. And this, everybody, is the finished product. Stunning bakery quality kakash cake. This one was a little botched up in one corner. This one looks a lot better. Regardless, this is the final product, and I'm really proud of it. And this is how you make professional quality kakash cake that's not thick and bready and dry.